Don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't appreciate my new home. I mean, as a doghouse, this place isn't bad. I guess I was expecting something that was a little more accessible, like maybe a ground level doghouse. I don't think this is going to work.
Welcome back. That opening, that animation, Pixar-style animation, has really nothing to do with what we're talking about today in this episode of Lightcraft Academy, but it does relate to a project that I'm about to embark upon, second year in a row, headed up with some of my students to a very remote Yupik Eskimo village on the Yukon River, about 90 miles from the Russian border. And once again this year, we're going to be doing some virtual production jet set style, but this year we want to mix their production with some animation. And we're thinking maybe Pixar-style animation. So the students are still doing the work, they're still doing the acting, we're still doing the filming, but then we repurpose that using some really cool advanced AI. So that's why I opened with that episode. Let's switch to a backdrop more appropriate for today's topic. And back in a more appropriate backdrop for today's topic, my personal happy space. I'm back in a TV control room. Really an incredible space. This control room, like a few others, is available on our Flickr account in 4K, and you notice it's a looping background, so very realistic, very high-end production quality of this particular shot. What I want to talk about today is I really noticed this last week, and it's been on my mind for a while, that quite often when you generate images, 2D images using Midjourney and now some other options, frequently you're given a really cool looking space, but not a lot of ceiling or headroom. It typically will design something fairly wide shot so you can see the ceiling and the floor. It doesn't always work in virtual production, and I felt in my two scenes last week at the interrogation room and in the laundromat that it seemed squeezed. It didn't look quite natural. And so I developed a template that you can download from the description of this YouTube video that you can pop into Canva or Photoshop. It'll guide you to how to resize, and I'll show you how to do this in a second, how to resize your AI-generated 2D images, but give yourself a little more space so that the actors can act and you're not feeling like you got to duck down because of the ceiling. So let me step away and I'll explain a very easy way that we can adjust our sets and make them a little more user-friendly. In my opening scene, I've designed the room with ceiling height top of mind, and it makes a big difference. The ceiling is appropriately higher than my position in the room. The trick is in part using terms like high ceiling or raised ceiling in your prompting, as demonstrated with this render of a hospital examination room without ceiling height guidance, and then a re-render with specific instructions to make the ceiling high and even out of the shot. You can also modify your images after they have been created using the guide that you can download from this episode's description. In this example, we begin with a render of a basement rec room using Lovart AI and do some quick color correction. Popping the guide on top of the image, we use the guide to shift the ceiling upward, adjust the floor, use Photoshop's generative fill to rebuild the middle, and then for good measure remove that table so that we have room for our actors. We now have a viable ceiling height to bring the image to life. This animation could be worked into the final jet set production in perhaps an opening scene. And back in this control room, my goal is to get one more episode of Lightcraft Academy on the air, onto YouTube, before we head up to Alaska, and then we'll be reporting from Alaska for about almost 10 days up there. So really looking forward to sharing our experience with Jet Set up in the Eskimo village. It will really be quite extraordinary. As always, thank you for watching. Continue to subscribe. People who have not subscribed, I always appreciate your support. See you in a bit.